We are ready for takeoff.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody, and welcome to Monday. Jason, chat is officially already disappointed in you that you did not present with a Santa hat on.
Yeah, the thought crossed my mind.
Well, apparently it didn't cross your mind enough. And on behalf of the entire community, let me be the first to say how ridiculously disappointed we are in you.
I am so sorry. You know what I'll do is I'll get one from someplace this weekend.
You telling me that nobody else in the office has a Santa hat? You can't throw a Slack message over in general and be like, "At here, I need a Santa hat right now."
I don't think so. To be honest with you, I've never really been a hat guy. So the problem
I've seen your hair when you're stressed. Maybe you should start wearing a hat.
Yeah. When stress comes out, yeah, my hair doesn't look so great. It's the first thing you do is like you're pulling your hand through your hair and you're like, how do we solve this problem?
I wouldn't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jason, happy Monday before Christmas to you, sir.
Merry Christmas.
Let me be the first to say happy holidays to you. Merry Christmas and all that jazz.
Yeah, you too, man. I'm excited. This is the time of the year where I think we actually get to like take a deep breath, relax, spend time with friends and family. If you don't, you should.
Yeah. Yeah.
Reflect on life. Reflect on the year. Yeah. Just
so let me ask you something then, because like this is, what is something that you think is important for employers to do this time of the year for their folks?
I mean, take care of them as best as you can. It doesn't always mean, I don't think it always means money either. It can be paid time off. It can be making sure that you're listening to your team members. It can be a lot of the ancillary things that we don't think a lot about because we're always running so fast throughout the year so much. But the biggest thing is making sure that your people, the people that you count on the most, which should be your whole team, have the appropriate amount of time off, paid time off that they can go spend with, friends, family, taking a deep breath and just being at home for the day with no responsibility or no tasks, no projects.
I think that is the most underrated perk.
Yeah.
And PwC taught me this, and I don't mean it that they like taught me like a core value type of thing.
Right.
Up until I was working at PwC, I didn't really have like a good, what I would call like a good Christmas break. When I started working for PwC, they have a mandatory shutdown. Like the entirety of the firm shuts down from basically what would be today until January 5th. And
Wow.
I found out that like all big four accounting firms, so PwC, Deloitte, EY, KPMG, they all do that. That's just like, that was part of like the accounting methodology that they had. And I thought it was lip service at first when I first joined PwC.
Yeah.
And then like it was legit. Like there wasn't an email, there wasn't a Google Hangout. Yes, we use Google Hangouts. There wasn't a Google Hangout. There wasn't a conference call. There wasn't a client engagement. There wasn't anything. There was nothing for 2 weeks. It was the most quiet time that I had the entire year in consulting.
Yeah. And I think that's super important.
Yeah.
And it can't just be lip service. And the business has to be able to support it and be structured in a way that even the customers and the clients that you work with know that that's the case, and that it's ahead of time. Meaning that you're not telling them the night before, oh, I'm going to be gone for the next 2 weeks or something.
Yeah.
But that it's communicated ahead of time.
Yeah.
I think it's extremely important.
I do too. I agree. I think it's an underserved perk for sure of business. Well, Jason, thank you for taking time out of your time off for the next 2 weeks to come and stream with us this morning in our weekly cyber threat brief.
I know. I'm sure getting up this morning was probably a little tough. You were probably thinking, oh man, if I was at PwC right now, I'd be sleeping in.
I don't know what you're talking about. I woke up and grinded at the gym this morning.
Yeah. Congrats.
Like listen, time off for me. I posted a meme in general on Discord yesterday where it was like, listen, time off for me just means no meetings. That's all it means for me. Like when I put time off on my calendar, it just means don't schedule any meetings. It doesn't mean that I'm not getting any work done. It just means don't schedule any meetings.
All right.
Real quick, let's hit some rules really fast for this Monday morning. Real quick, super easy, very straightforward. No racist, sexist, misogynistic, elitist, or otherwise toxic behavior in chat whatsoever, period, dot. We do try to keep chat free of any of that type of behavior. With that being said, we do have moderators in chat. Huge shout out and huge W to our moderators. We are streaming across multiple platforms, including Twitch, YouTube, X, and LinkedIn. So say hi to your fellow cybersecurity professionals across all of those platforms that you are tuning into us from. Our moderators are here to keep chat free of any racist, sexist, misogynistic, elitist, or otherwise toxic behavior. They are not here, however, to stifle chat in any way, shape, or form whatsoever. They're here to make sure that your voices get heard. This is an interactive chat. As you can tell, we do have moderators in chat who see all the awesome questions, comments, concerns, anything that you've got, pushes them up into chat whenever they're really awesome or they want to they're relevant to something that Jason and I are talking about. Huge shout out real quick to Nemix and his raid who came in and joined us. Thank you so very much, Nemix, for raiding us. Glad to see you. Hope you had an awesome stream. You guys are just catching us, just getting started with our weekly cybersecurity threat brief. If you do have a question or comment about anything that Jason and I talk about, do drop it in the chat. Our moderators will grab it and push it up on stream. Jason and I will discuss it.
Do our best. We will do our best.
Do our best. Let me ask you this really quick, Jason. I saw somebody as we were talking about like taking time off for the holidays, there was a very astute counter observation to the time off on the holidays. And as somebody who runs an MDR and protects organizations on a day-to-day basis, I know that this, we've had Noah on stream before, and Noah's talked about like the Thanksgiving attack that almost always happens whenever he tries to take some time off at Thanksgiving. If anybody in chat, next time Bobby's on, Bobby and I used to dread this time of the year because for 3 years straight, we almost invariably had an attack around Christmas time. Linux Node says, bad guys attack networks on holidays because no one is there or light staff is working. What do you say to that?
It happens, and it happens more than what you think, and oftentimes it never makes the news, right? Because it's the organization that doesn't want anybody else to know that they've had a cybersecurity attack. But I mean, it is like it's such a busy time of the year, and people are running around. You've got lots of family obligations. You're probably shopping for gifts, and you're doing all of these additional things that your eyes and ears and your focus is not necessarily 100% on the normal stuff. And so you're trying to balance, an extra heavy personal schedule, and you're trying to balance, your work life. And, we see it all the time. I mean, colleges, universities are reduced in staff, but however, the students are off, on vacation, but all these accounts are still active. It's not like, the systems are shut down. And then you've got your e-commerce. I mean, hey, if you want to disrupt a company and ensure that they're going to pay ransomware, go disrupt them at their busiest time of the year. Mm-hmm. Right. You've heard a bunch. There's these no change time frames.
Like, change freezes and whatnot.
Change freezes right now is a ton of change freezes across almost every one of our customers, because the end of the year, that getting beyond middle of November till the end of the year, nobody wants any changes. Don't push any new updates, codes. That includes patches.
Yes.
I mean, I've talked to some organizations that they will not patch from the middle of November through the end of the year because they're concerned of what it could break and how it could affect their busiest sales season.
That's a very we had that conversation at Abbott quite a lot. I mean, our change freeze was almost that exact same window, middle of November through the end of the year. And man,
Yep.
to get a patch on a system in those 45 days practically took a signature from the CEO to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, we've seen it. One of the things that we try and do with our customers is really push hard on a very tight EDR configuration. And we also push very hard on, so like Microsoft, we've talked about this before, but conditional access policies and just some very tight programs at the end of the year, trying to minimize that attack surface at this time of the year.
I'm going to ask you one more interviewee type of question, just because you said something that spawned a thought that I had. And I know you and I have talked a little bit behind the scenes on some of this, so this will be a little bit of a leading question to some of the things we've talked about. You mentioned, dynamically changing your defensive posture this time of the year based on, reduced staff, increased attack loads, things like that. Do you think organizations need to be considering a more active defense posture than they currently employ?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. 100%.
I'm with you on that. I know that's why I know it's a little bit of a leading question. You and I have talked that like attacks require almost a daily cadence. I mean, maybe that might be a little overkill for some orgs, but at a minimum, a weekly cadence, more so than what people are doing today.
Yeah. One thing that I have noticed in the last, like this year, I would say this year, is organizations that don't even have IT departments, but they have like a managed service provider, or they have a part-time IT person that helps them out from time to time. Even those organizations are having a much more regular frequency cybersecurity conversation, because they realize that they're finally realizing that like they're small, they're that much more of a target. And I'm talking about organizations that are, 50, 75, 100 people in size. They are realizing that they need to have a cybersecurity conversation inside the organization, even though they might not be IT people. They are realizing that they need to get outside third-party help, much more regular assessments, and how do we defend the company that we rely on, even though we might not have a full-time IT person or a completely built-out staff. And I say all that because I truly believe in this day and age that we're living in right now, that if you're not having a daily conversation and it's not on the forefront of your mind daily, yes, the weekly, bi-weekly has got to be happening. Because even if you're an organization where you're like, well, we're a little smaller, I've walked into organizations and they say, well, we don't have anything on-prem. We're completely cloud. Doesn't matter. It's just your stuff, your assets, your data, your information is just sitting in a different location. It's just not on-prem anymore.
Yeah.
And so they think, well, it's somebody else's problem. Oh no. Oh no. No. It's still your problem. Like Salesforce isn't going to defend your tenancy and your data with inside it and the identity that logs in to Salesforce.
Yep.
And we were having this conversation last week, and this came up, and so they didn't say what you just said, but it's the concept. And I said, well, you're an organization of 40, 50 people. You need to be talking about this, thinking about this more than another organization that has a whole IT department, a whole cybersecurity department, all of the rest of it. It absolutely needs to be on your mind. Active defense.
One of the things that I'm going to continue, like at least for the foreseeable future, I feel very firm in this belief and this is something I've held true since I left the military in 2013, but I think I have more conviction on it today than I did in 2013. Organizations, cyber organizations in enterprises need to have military mindsets. They need to.
I don't disagree with that at
They
all.
need to have military mindsets.
Yeah. In the reality is, organizations do not have. Let me say it this way: they need to have that thought pattern because every day they are experiencing an attack of some sort, and they don't have the government or the police or whether it's the FBI or the Secret Service out looking to defend their organization. Now I'll say this: yes, the Secret Service, FBI, state police have some resources for you, but they don't have the resources to defend your organization digitally every day, 24/7, 365.
Nor are they equipped or empowered to.
Yeah, nor are they equipped. You don't have an MSA or a SOW with any of those organizations. They aren't committing anything to you. But yes, if you get ransomed, I guarantee that they would love the information. They would love all the data and metadata around it. Are they going to help you? It depends on their caseload. I mean, I heard it from a Secret Service one guy that absolutely. I mean, they are paid by tax. I mean, they're paid by U.S. citizens paying taxes, right? But their first and foremost is to protect the nation.
Yeah. Beardsec asked a fantastic question here. He said, "Can you elaborate what you mean by military mindset?" I would love to elaborate on this. This is an apt question on this. When I talk, so most, Jason, keep me honest on this one, right? Most organizations, if they have a cybersecurity team, it is probably 60% risk focused and 40% ops focused, meaning that most of the time is spent on GRC, corporate policies, interacting with internal audit, adhering to whatever regulatory control frameworks that exist out there, and 40% on operations, meaning, the 40% that is spent on operations is predominantly spent responding to fires, more of a firefighter mentality than it is anything else. When I talk about ops in the military, and I leverage heavily on my days at the agency, I know I don't talk about it much, chat, but God, that joke will never get old. We're really talking about, a mentality shift where you understand that you are attacked every day. Right? Yeah. A firefighter mentality is like, and Beard, I'm going to jokingly talk about some of your experience as a firefighter, right? You're sitting in a fire station waiting for the fire alarm to go off, and then you're really great when that fire alarm goes off in terms of like grabbing your playbooks, you run through, you do the things that you need to do, you fight the fire, you get the fire contained, and then you bounce out and you wait for the next fire alarm to go off. And in a military mentality, it is the presumption that you are literally one decision away from getting hacked every second of every day. And so you're constantly training, you're constantly preparing, you're constantly searching for contextually relevant, intelligence. We're not talking about IOC intelligence. We're talking about the combination of human, OSINT, everything across the board, so that you have a very forward-leaning methodology. I'll use something that I'm working on a project for here. I've shared this with you, Jason. The React for Shell stuff, right? I could, if I wanted to, just wait for somebody to do a write-up, and then I can extract the TTPs or the IOCs from a write-up, but then I'm back in that firefighter mentality. Or I can take a more forward-leaning approach, which is, okay, there is a react-to-shell vulnerability. What is everything that I know about this? And I'm going to go out and I'm going to gather my own intelligence, my own TTPs, the things that I know are relevant to me for my organization. And I'm going to put those to work for my organization today instead of waiting for another organization to produce that stuff out there. I think it's a mentality shift where you're focused predominantly on assuming that the fight is at your door every day.
100%.
Instead of reacting as a firefighter would.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that approach at all, and I think that should be. Now, there's a lot of people out there that I have heard disagree.
Yes.
On it, and the one thing that I would tell them is be careful, because you truly are that one click away, or the one thing away from having a really bad day. Now, if you're an organization or an individual where you don't have the time or the luxury to go out and to do what you just said, Neal, which is the forward leaning, I'm going to go and kind of dissect this thing and try and find the TTPs myself and do the forward leaning work. Well, then, yeah, the first and foremost thing is you could read about other people's research and findings.
Yep.
I think that the thing here to focus in on is to be doing something in the forward-leaning area. Our adversaries are going to be changing around us on a daily basis, guaranteed.
One of the things that I've said was, I think in the early days of cyber, we all thought that we could get ahead of cyber attacks. And so we built a lot of systems and mindsets and mentalities around, well, if we protect good enough, like if you look at the old NIST model, right, it was protect first, right? Mm-hmm. And so we thought that we could create an organization that could never be hacked. And I think that we have found over the years that is a fallacy. That is never going to happen. It is a dream world. Exactly, Beard. We were naive to think that was ever going to be the case. But now we've created security teams that are purely reactionary, purely waiting on signal, because we believe that because we haven't been hacked yet, we're not going to get hacked. And we've got to change that mindset to being like, no, we are constantly under attack, and you've got to operate like you're constantly under attack.
This is why, like, the tabletop exercises and the forward-leaning activities are so important. And it's not crazy to think, like, hey, what if this happens? What if that happens? What if something unforeseen happens? I think people need to focus in on what you're saying here is if you're waiting for signals, you're already reactionary. You're doing that. You're waiting for something to go off. You're waiting for a bell to go off. And in doing so, you are going to be 100% reactionary. And then, then just don't be disappointed when you don't catch it in time. Because there are other things that are waiting for the dominoes to fall. And if they fail, what if? And the what if is reality here. The reality is that if the dominoes don't fall the exact way that you hope or think that they will, you won't get alarm bells.
Yep.
You will just get attacked successfully.
You'll get a ransomware lock screen, and you'll be wondering what the hell's going on.
Yeah.
Speaking of warfare, I like this. This is a nice little transition into a topic that I wanted to cover today, Jason. Speaking of intelligence, speaking of forward-leaning, approach that we're talking about warfare, because I read, a very interesting article over the weekend that here, I'm going to give the title of the article and then I'm going to talk about the context. The title of the article is China's open AI models are in a dead heat with the West. And I think that this is a super important conversation to have, especially when we talk about the construct of warfare, not because of China. This has nothing to do with U.S. versus China relations. I'm not here to talk about that whatsoever. But China is openly releasing open source models that compete with models here in the States that are charging you $200 a month to access.
Yeah.
Open source models. chat, open source models, meaning you can go to Hugging Face, you can download them. And when they are democratizing models, just like we see with the democratization of pen testing tools, attackers will pick them up and use them. And it will accelerate cyber attacks.
Yeah. Well, as we know, everything comes from China is cheaper. So
I don't know. I've used K2 and I've used DeepSeek, and I gotta say they're actually pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it for 90% of the task, most people aren't going to know the difference between Kimi K2 and Claude.
Right.
Like it's that good.
It's that good. And the question is my question for you, Neal, is like, when you think about that, are you thinking like that their models might not be built with like ethical, guardrails, that their models could be completely open and like here you talk about, here in the United States, a lot of models are trying to be developed in an ethical way where they can't be used against you. But what do you think is happening over there in China?
So it's interesting you say that. So I have found that it's actually quite easy to find a model without guardrails. I have several of them locally on my MacBook. You can go to Hugging Face today, which is like the GitHub for models. And you can find unethical, uncensored models on Hugging Face today. No guardrails, no regulation, no warning, no you must be over 18, no present your ID to download this as of today. So
do you think, as cybersecurity professionals listening to this threat briefing, do you think people should go and download
absolutely,
those?
Absolutely.
Sharpen themselves on what's out there.
Absolutely. I great that you called that out, because I can't, that's one of the things that I think is super important, whether you're an anti-AI nihilist or not. This technology is coming. And I think you should be grossly aware of just how many guardrails exist between a truly unmoderated model and what you get from ChatGPT or Claude or Grok or anything else like that, because it blew my mind. It absolutely blew my mind, what a foundational model looks like with no guardrails on it. And I don't say that to say like you should go out and you should do nefarious stuff, but you should, just like you would play with a pen test tool in a controlled environment so that you understood what the impacts were for a tool, you should go play with some of these models, because some of these models, I was in Discord last night chatting with some folks, and I was sharing with them the process in which, as a researcher, when I was researching stuff, I could ask ChatGPT or Grok or Claude or something like that a question. It would be like, sorry, I can't answer that for you because I don't know what your intent is. You may be using this for malicious purposes. Therefore, I'm not going to give you this answer. And I'm like, I'm literally just asking you to analyze this piece of software. Or I'm literally just asking you if I was going to do this so that I could look for countermeasures or develop TTPs or build controls around it, how would I do it? And they're like, I can't do that for you because I quite literally can't with the guardrails that I have in place. And so I think that it's important to go to these models so that you can ask questions, and you'd be surprised the delta that exists between what you would do as a cybersecurity professional to protect your organization and even what these models think are guardrailed behavior that they have to protect you against.
Yeah. I think it's so important. Like, I think the point that you're making here needs to resonate with people is you need to use it no different like you'd use a pen testing tool.
Yeah.
And you need to become aware of what is out there and what's available. Please don't keep your head in the sand on this. This stuff is truly eye-opening.
I want
And
to answer this one really quick for Cypher Enigma because it's related. I tried that. I gave. Here's the extent that I went to with the question that I asked. I fed it a screenshot of my LinkedIn profile. I was using my personal name, my personal credit card on my personal business account where I had to provide my DUNS number to ChatGPT. And it had several project files already on there from previous projects. So it had tons of context about me. I argued with ChatGPT that it knew as much about me as it needed to know to realize that I was asking an ethical, research-driven question, and it admitted that it knew all this stuff about me and was like, sorry, I still can't answer it for you. Promptly went and found as many uncensored models as I could humanly find.
Absolutely. And if you think about it, you know, maybe people should be using some of these uncensored models to help them increase their cybersecurity defenses and posture.
How would they do that, Jason?
Well, you gave a good example. I know you do. You've got an example lined up for, you know, how would somebody, you know, prompt about their environment?
I go back to prompt engineering is the skill that needs to be learned in 2026. If you're looking for an AI skill to learn, the model is irrelevant. Let me say this about the model stuff. At the end of the day, the model is relatively irrelevant. The prompt is how you control the model. The prompt is the joystick for the model. Yeah. Now, there's a lot of things that exist between the prompt and the model. Hence, we talk about guardrails and things like that, and the guardrails that ChatGPT and OpenAI and Grok and you know Gemini and whatnot put on their help. But if you look at the prompt as the joystick and the model as the race car for my sim racing fans in chat, you really want to master the joystick. Yeah. You really want to master the joystick. That's going to be what's going to be the difference between having a successful output from the model and not. Whatever you're doing in cyber, whether it's policy, pen testing, honeypot creation, doesn't matter. You're going to want to master the joystick.
Yeah. And here's the thing I think about, and I encourage even our team to work on these things, is to go out and to spend time with those models, working on them, asking and coming up with all of the different types of scenarios of prompts that can help unveil or uncover areas that we would maybe not have thought about, right? So this way here, you're almost putting yourself in the shoes, that's the forward leaning moment of like, what would the criminal be doing in the scenario of how to exploit my environment? You know, we constantly are thinking about how do we defend our environment. And I think that this prompt engineering side of things gets us into that mindset of like, how would we exploit our environment if I was going to exploit the environment, so that you can start to think about your environment differently, right?
Speaking of prompts, I did just drop my GitHub in chat. Go take a look at some of the prompts that I have been putting up. I've got some of my prompts that I've been working on, predominantly in the cybersecurity space, but some of it's in my AI trading bot prompts as well. And feel free to steal those prompts. Like, there's nothing proprietary about those prompts whatsoever. And they'll absolutely be there to help you see how I approach the prompting of these models to get cybersecurity specific tasks done.
Yeah. I think as you were talking about that, a couple of things also came to mind. And I think one of the things that, sharpening your skill set as you go into 2026, and how we looked at like 2025 was very much like, okay, all these models came out. We've seen them iterate very quickly on the models. I think that 2026 is going to be that year where we need to become really as best as we possibly can, subject matter experts at prompt engineering. And that's going to be like if you spent some time in the first quarter of 2026 to get you to the next step, right? Because you might think about like, wow, I can use prompt engineering, maybe develop a bot or two, to help me, sort of defend my area, or can start to consume bots. Mm-hmm. Agentic AI, if you think about it, if you're an individual where you're like a one-man band, you might be thinking, how do I scale myself, and how do I get to know the software that's in place? Like last week, I talked about CrowdStrike and how they're no longer injecting into the memory and DLLs. One of the things that I think that, and where I was going with this is becoming better at prompt engineering about the software that's in place, your software stack, and maybe even consuming some agentic AI so that it can help better position you, and not only on the defensive side, but also on the proactive side.
Let me ask you something, and you may not have a great, I'm asking you this not knowing what your stance is on this. So if you don't have a great stance, just let me know. This is a cold one. I haven't asked you this one before. 6 months ago, we talked about agentic browsers when Atlas came out. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if you've had a chance to play with them recently, but I recently got hooked on to Google's Anti-Gravity, which is their IDE for coding that's baked into the Gemini models. And in there, they have a Chrome extension, part of Anti-Gravity, that allows Anti-Gravity as an IDE to control your Chrome browser to effectively have Gemini act as a agentic browsing tool inside of Chrome. We saw last week, I think it was last week, maybe it was 2 weeks ago, last week or the week before, Anthropic, the guys who make Claude, released their Chrome extension for Claude in the browser as well. So, the fact that they've decided to go Chrome extensions versus actual browsers kind of showed that they already feel they don't want to own the browser market. In case of Google, they already own the browser market, right? But Claude doesn't feel the need to own the browser market. But there are clearly benefits to having AI in the browser. Now, I have my list of use cases where I've seen it successful. Have you played with it in the last 6 months to see a change in usefulness on agentic browsing?
I'll be honest here, I have not played with it much.
Okay.
Not enough to develop this, opinion one way or another on it. The little bit that I have dabbled with it is it is helpful. Do I think it's going to remain? Yeah, I think that it's probably going to remain here as a useful tool. And you're right. Like, am I going to switch browsers? Probably not.
Right.
But is the plugin in the browser that I'm already living in, that's a place that's going to have its benefits. But I surely think like this, in even Google came out with a statement is that they even see search taking place differently.
Yeah.
That it is, people are, their first and foremost thought is not necessarily going to the Google homepage and searching for something. It's now going to an AI agent, Grok, Claude, OpenAI, ChatGPT, and starting their journey there. And then once they find what they're looking for, then they pivot and go to that place.
So the reason I bring up the agentic browser stuff is because I have gotten a chance to play with it. And when we talk about warfare, this is this is scary. This is scary from a warfare perspective. And I don't mean that from like what your users can do with agentic browsing as a user in your environment type of scary. We'll use there's an open source project called Browser OS. Somebody, maybe a mod, can go find a link for Browser OS. It's a GitHub project. That GitHub project allows you to connect to LM Studio on the back end. So now you can run a local model on LM Studio, a tool-based model, so something like Quinn or K2 or DeepSeek or anything like that that's got tool enablement. You can hook Browser OS up to that, and now you can have AI-driven browsing capability locally without having to rely on any foundational model that exists out there in the market. Now, why is that scary from an attacker perspective? These things quite literally act autonomously. You want to have it examine all the elements to figure out how to scrape a web page? The agent can do it. You want to have it generate 1,000 user accounts with brand new Gmail accounts or brand new Proton email accounts, so that you've got an incident bot farm? Have it done agentically with a browser agent. Just task it and send it out, and it'll go forth and do it. The amount of things that you can do faster. So any of the scam stuff that we've seen over the last 10, 15, 20 years in cybersecurity, any of the mass exploitation of websites that we've seen, imagine it multiplied exponentially with something like agentic browsing. You can task those bots. So, let's say you set up an N8N workflow or something like that does, as a local instance. So therefore you're running it completely on your own infrastructure. You have a webhook that's, exposed, and then you use an agentic browser to effectively run an entire phishing campaign at scale with something like N8N. Yeah. The scale of cyber operations that the adversary is currently able to engage on is something that I do not think, I wholeheartedly believe there are probably less than a dozen organizations on the entirety of the planet that are even remotely equipped to handle cyber attacks at that scale.
Yeah.
It's not me being funny. It's just it's amazing to look at on the outside.
Yeah, and the awareness is part of what we're talking about here. Like, this is why, you and I 6 and 9 months ago were talking about the speed at which cybersecurity automation on the adversary side, these criminal hackers have the ability to move so fast.
Yeah.
It's because all the tools that you basically just talked about are basically free.
And that's what Jeff brings up here, right? Where it's like, so what happens when the CIA, FBI, NSA, DIA, you name your three-letter agency, can't track bad people anymore based off searches because they use local AI?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Welcome to the scary future. Welcome to the scary future.
Yeah.
This is why the China story isn't just about China. This is about democratization of AI.
Yep. Yeah, you highlight a very important point here. What if the next country, comes out with their own LLM model? It's free, no guardrails, right? It's open sourced, right? And it's not China related, and so then you can it has nothing to do with China. That this is the problem.
I'm going
to
remind Chat that this is not a political stream. We do not engage in politics here. So I'm going to ask Jason a question. This isn't a political question. This is a cybersecurity question. So let's try to remember that in chat. Let's not engage in politics. I encourage chat to have a civil discourse. The moderators are here to make sure that the chat stays non-political. But feel free to opine upon this, chat, as I bring this up in a non-political fashion. Jason, does that mean that we need to regulate open source AI models? Just like this is the gun debate. Is the model the problem, or is how the model used the problem?
How the model's used is the problem. Yeah. Like, you need to have these models. These models are helpful. Unfortunately, we live in a world where everything that can be helpful also has an evil side to it, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you could start to take away, knives from a chef, because knives are used to, stab somebody in the throat on the train in New York. It wasn't the knife. It was the usage of the knife and how it was used by an individual.
Yeah.
So, and I know that this is this can get hairy real quick, but the reality is if you look at it, a piece of log laying on the ground could be used for a good thing, a campfire with a family, or could be used to bludgeon somebody.
Yeah.
We aren't going to sit there and say that the log on the ground is the problem.
That's right.
It's the person that picked it up and made a choice with it.
And I think this is the problem that we got into with cybersecurity. This is like, just to be clear, I have had people on this stream where I have fought vehemently who have said that we needed to regulate and ban pen testing tools from showing up on GitHub. And I was like, you are dangerously close to me fighting you right here on stream over this. Because like that is the worst idea ever. Like to deprive
100%.
defensive organizations from an understanding of adversary weaponry is a horrible way to defend an organization. And so like I'll always fight against like the regulation of this type of stuff. And I think that it is that mentality that has kneecapped us in cyber. Yeah. I'll die on that sword. I think that has absolutely kneecapped us in cyber.
The one thing that...
Say it. Say it.
I'll say it.
Say it.
Listen,
you've been on this stream for a year. You're not in any danger of, unless you say something absolutely ridiculous, you're not in any danger of getting, Beard Tech's not going to grab the hook and pull you off the stream. So I think you're good.
Here's the thing is I would actually encourage offensive attacks.
By who?
Well, hang on a second. If you ransomed me and I'm sitting here and I'm trying to defend my environment, you ruin my day. I'm an organization of 100 employees. Why don't I get the opportunity to maybe try and ransomware you?
You're talking about hackbacks now. You're talking about hackbacks. I've been avoiding this conversation.
For some reason or another, the government doesn't think that we should be able to hack back as a private entity. But wait a minute. Wait a minute. Wait. But hang on a second. The government can hack back, but we can't.
So
we can only sit here and defend ourselves. Shields up.
Nope. You're gonna lose my friendship here.
You told me to say it.
I did tell you to say it. Hackback is a terrible idea. Hackback is a absolutely. I love this. Now listen. I can absolutely appreciate where your head is at, and I don't disagree with your foundational principle, but if there are 10 organizations that are prepared to handle the cyber attacks of the future, there's probably one organization, if that, in the private sector that could actually be in a position to do legitimate hackback. And it is the name that shall not be mentioned.
I won't. And let me clarify. I am not an eye for an eye guy. I don't believe that, we should. I brought the topic up because this is the thing that is sort of not talked about.
It is
we essentially get to defend.
Yeah.
But we can never, the moment that you actually try and take action back, now you have a problem. Now all of a sudden you're the attacker.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just think that that's sort of interesting. I think it's an interesting thing to continue to keep in front of us.
It's
But
my question to you: if I were going to have you defend a hackback, how do you ensure that your target is attributed with 100% accuracy?
And that's where it gets hairy. You're spot on, and that's why I'm not advocating for it here.
I know. You had to bring it up, and I understand why you had to bring it up. But until you can answer that question, until the cyber community as a private organization, non-government entity can answer that question.
Yeah. And you won't know what the fallout is, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you think, oh, I hacked back and I got, this laptop or these users, like I've seen, several videos online of where, a call center and the criminal guy got into the video, and then he was attacking the individual that tried to attack him first. This whole thing could get spun right out of control.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
And,
there's actually legitimate cases of that. What you're talking about, Chad, just in case you're not aware, what he's talking about is he's talking about some of these YouTube, call center scam baiters that, and I've researched this extensively. And now let's call it what it is. They have gained unauthorized access to a computer system with which they were not authorized to access that computer system. And they have released video evidence of them effectively breaking Title 18 of the U.S. Government Code, specifically the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. Make no mistake about it. If their true identities were ever known, they are 100% eligible for 20 years of federal prison under the CFAA.
And that's why you don't want to hack back.
And it might be fun to watch, and you might think it's completely and totally justified. I'm not here to opine upon the morals and ethics of that whatsoever. Just know that at the end of the day, it is still, by U.S. law definition, a crime.
Yep. So what we need to do is we need to pray for those individuals. That, again, I'm not an eye for an eye type of person.
Right.
But, that they will find a career somewhere else other than preying upon, our loved ones.
Right. Exactly. All right. Well, that was quite a tangent. On warfare, quite a tangent on Chinese models. I think we wrapped that one. I think there was a little bit of a rabbit hole, but I think we succinctly covered a lot of points on that one.
I've got to ask you, and you I'm just going to ask you the question.
Yeah.
What do you think about China exercising its lasers capability last week? There was a warship that they had equipped with new lasers. Mm-hmm. And these lasers are supposed to be able to be their new. So instead of having ammunition with a gun, they now have extremely powerful lasers. Part of me did think of the movie.
That's right.
Laser beams.
Laser beams.
That are going to be the new attack methodology.
So this is going to sound like a weird take, and I'm completely fine with this. I don't hate innovation, especially in warfare.
Yep.
I'm not an anti-innovationist. Now, I want that to be said with caveats. Does that mean that I'm in favor of nuclear war? Absolutely not. Does that mean that I'm in favor of obliterating the entirety of civilization? Over splitting an atom? Absolutely not. Does that mean that I do agree or disagree that we should have dropped the bomb on Hiroshima? I'm not here to debate that, and my personal views on that are not important. I do fundamentally think innovation as a whole is good. And I think innovation in warfare forces countries to innovate their technology.
Yep.
Offensively and defensively. I'm with you. When you said a minute ago, I think I should have the right to hack you back. I should have the right to ransom you if you ransom me first. That mentality is 1,000% why I think innovation in warfare is absolutely key. We need people advancing on warfare so that we can advance on defenses. And whether you like it or not, listen, let's have an uncomfortable truth about humans if we want to talk about humans. We could give two poops less about innovating for science, but dear God, if we thought that an adversary innovated on warfare and weaponry to obliterate our existence, we'd be the first out the door to make the next best thing.
Yeah.
And that's why I have that statement, is because we don't seem to care about innovation for good, but dear God, we'll innovate to save our asses in a heartbeat.
Yeah. Yeah.
That might be a hot, cynical take, but so when railguns were a thing, I remember when they started talking about railguns onto ships and from a warfare perspective, thought it was awesome. Again, it happened, but nothing, there wasn't any real tech innovation around it. When this Chinese laser thing isn't the first thing to come about with lasers, right? There was Bush during, it was Reagan. God, further back than that, it was Reagan with Star Wars, right? Where he was going to put lasers on satellite beams to shoot nukes out of suborbital space.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's not necessarily new. It's just, it was, sort of in the news, and I've seen some people's takes on it and some write-ups, and I was thinking it's interesting. I think it's a topic here. Now, I don't disagree with you. I think the innovation is extremely important. If we come back over to cybersecurity and the digital aspect of things, I still, even though I'm vehemently against the cyber attacks and cyber warfare. That's why we're on this, doing threat briefings and all the rest of it. But I will say that there has been some very skilled attack types and attack vectors that have created the whole innovation behind how we should think about protecting an organization. Yeah. And so if we didn't have these adversaries sitting over there all day, every day, thinking about how can I exploit the software and, how can I do this and how can I do that? I think in some way it would not cause us to think about how we could one up the adversary, right? I think it actually causes us innovation on our side when you do have an adversary on the other side. Does that make sense?
You're saying the counterpoint to what I'm making, which is that having to go to war and match TTPs disincentivizes innovation.
No, I'm saying it incentivizes innovation inside of the cybersecurity space.
Yes. Yeah.
Because think about this. If we didn't have adversaries, we just created software and everything was, beautiful, butterflies and bunny rabbits, all over the place, that we would just create software and not think about it getting exploited.
Yeah. Yeah.
But now we're in this situation where every day we have to think about how do we innovate better and how do we create something better so that we hope that it doesn't get exploited, or it's actually challenging ourselves. I guess where I'm landing on this, and I'm talking out loud.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Yeah.
Is that having adversaries on the other side, I actually think creates a good challenge for us.
Absolutely. Like, I mean, listen, it's my same, when you asked me about the laser thing, I mean, like, that's why we have jobs in cyber. That's why we will always have jobs in cyber, is that so long as there is always incentive to do harm to somebody else, and I don't mean like gun violence harm, physical violence harm. You know, if we talk about digital harm, whether it's scams, whether it's ransomware, whether it's BEC, whether it's, you know, malware creation, zero-day hunting, whatever the case is, so long as there is an attempt to monetize the weakness of a counterparty, that's probably the best way to put it, we will always have innovation, and that innovation will always drive our cyber defenses forward.
Yeah.
Now, here's the other side of that coin, right? We'll use the coin example. Most defenses, like, we're actually really not innovating. We don't have technological innovation in cyber.
What do you mean by that?
The adversaries we see today are faster at exploiting the same old attacks that have worked for 20 years.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And we have not innovated in terms of how we solve for those attacks.
Yeah.
Proofpoint wasn't an innovation on phishing email.
Yeah.
They just increased efficacy.
Okay, so what you're getting into here is we need an attack first before we create a defense strategy.
Oh, that has been the cyber mantra from day one. How many board members have you talked to, Jason, where said, I haven't been attacked yet. I don't need a cybersecurity team. I don't need an MDR, Jason, because I've never been hacked.
And to those folks, I say best of luck to you. But so what you are touching on here is this is culture. We got to change this culture, and not just you and me. But what I'm saying here is we, as a healthy economy in this space, we need to change this culture, this mindset, that we need an attack type first before we create a solution, before we create innovation around this. That's backwards.
It 1,000% is. We're backwards in our cyber mentality versus what we are in kinetic warfare. In kinetic warfare, we see an adversary develop a capability. They develop a capability as nuclear deterrence.
Yeah.
So what we do is, in the kinetic space, we develop a counter capability to make ourselves less susceptible to that attack. Cyber, we don't do that.
No innovation. Yeah, there's no innovation in that.
Yeah.
You're just reactionary.
Yeah, you're just reactionary.
You're just reacting.
Yeah.
Now, so take this for a second. I actually would applaud, right? The person that said, we should come up with laser beams and we should do it in this way because it's gonna do this, and this, right? That's the forward-leaning moment. Now, if we actually had forward-leaning moments in cybersecurity, it would be well, we should come up with this, and this to actually protect ourselves, even though that attack type hasn't happened yet.
So this is where I think we lose cyber, right? This is where I think we lose cyber personalities. And AI is a perfect example of this. And as soon as AI hit the social sphere, and people use ChatGPT to create recipes, to create social media content, to create news articles, to create AI LinkedIn posts, as soon as AI was tangentially drawn to the same brain rot that has accompanied TikTok and Instagram, the cybersecurity community, the cybersecurity mental ecosystem immediately went, AI is garbage. Like all it's good for is slop. Our culture in cyber, we have taken cynicism and skepticism and doubt to the worst extreme possible, so that when new technology emerges, we are instantly hating on it.
Yeah.
Which is back to my point about militarization, about military mentality. We've lost the hacker ethos. The hacker ethos was when new technology came out, we wanted to go know everything about that technology so that we knew how to exploit it, how to use it for our benefits. We wanted to understand how it worked inside and out. That was the hacker ethos.
Yeah.
And now today, if there was a new fancy part of technology that drops tomorrow, 90% of the cyber community would shit on it.
Yeah. And it's, I really wonder why that is. Like we got away from the research and development aspect of it. And it's become highly marketed, highly profitable, highly profited. It's become like, and in some ways, somebody asked me the other day, and I'm not leaving your conversation here, but somebody asked me the other day if I enjoy what I do. And I said, I love what I do, but for some reason or another, I don't always love the people that I work with. And I'm not talking about the team at BitLift.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about some of the folks in the IT cybersecurity space have become hoity-toity. Like have become, like, oh, I because I run Cloudflare and I run SentinelOne, I run all
just because I bought an F1
stuff.
team.
Yeah. And I run all this, and I'm like thinking to myself, man, you're just the consumer of the tool. You didn't create the tool. Like, you made the decision, you verified and vetted some of the tools, but what happened here? Like we have lost the research and the development side of us. And we also, like, I went to a conference earlier this year in July to I'll give you this. It was a farming conference of trees and nuts. These guys were all down to earth, normal, great conversations, super friendly. Come over and sit down at our table and join in our conversation. Oh, you're growing those nut trees too? I'm growing them too.
Mm-hmm.
Never once did it enter into the conversation any sort of competitiveness.
Mm-hmm.
Never did it end up in like, well, mine's better than yours,
right?
Or my approach is better than yours, and all this sort of thing. And I left that conference and I was thinking, holy smokes, this is a tree farming conference. All these people in here were super nice. I go to an IT cybersecurity conference and I'm like, I don't want to be here.
It's dirty
because
it feels dirty. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, people aren't nice. There's all this competition. Nobody wants to talk to each other.
Real quick, as Jason's explaining this story, if you're new to cyber, if you're less than 3 years in this industry, if you're just starting out or you're still in school thinking about joining cyber, first and foremost, Jason and I are not trying to discourage you. Secondly, this is the shit that people don't talk about in our industry. This is how bad it has gotten. Because Jason's 100% spot on. You can have two vendors that do EDR right next to each other at Black Hat, DEF CON, B-Sides, whatever the case is, and they will quite literally stand on the tables pissing in each other's cornflakes to convince you to buy their stuff.
Which is awful. Like, have we really gotten that? And I think the answer is yes. It's gotten that bad.
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking to myself, I'm like, gosh, when I got into this industry, it was nice. It was friendly. People were helpful.
They loved sharing stories about how they stopped attacks or how they defended
Yeah,
against scenarios.
yeah.
Absolutely.
And now we fight over, and I've seen this at conferences where, you know, you go to the next booth and it's like it's like you're the last person on earth that's going to be buying a piece of software, and this is why I truly don't believe that when you are selling a product, we should not just go to, well, what's the cheapest price you're going to sell it for? Because people don't get paid like that. And we have lost the love and the respect for what does the software do and what is it capable of doing. Now I get it. Everybody's got budgets, and that's I'm not trying to talk
Right,
about
right,
that.
right.
But
This isn't a budget conversation. This is about
no,
buying
this
values.
is buying value
Yeah.
and buying what the company like. I my wife and I, we're buying Christmas gifts, and I'm like, well, I'm actually willing to pay maybe even more. I'm willing to pay based on where I buy the product, who I'm buying the product from, and all of those types of things, right?
Well,
And
oh,
we
go
have
ahead. No, go ahead.
lost this in cybersecurity.
So let me tell you this, and this is apt that we're having this conversation, and I'll share a little behind the scenes, that we're seeing at Query, just to kind of like as an example of what Jason's talking about. We have come full circle, right? When cyber started, every tool was an innovation. SIM was an
Yeah,
innovation. Splunk was an
yeah,
innovation. Carbon Black was an innovation. Bit9 was an innovation, right? Those were innovative ideas because they did not exist and there was legitimately a gap in the market.
right.
We've now, over the last 5 years, and I'll use vulnerability management as an example of this, right? Vulnerability management used to be Nmap scans. And then somebody decided, well, I'm going to productize that. And you actually ended up with Nessus, which was one of the first. It was open source for the
Yep,
longest time before they decided to commercialize it. They saw how successful vulnerability scans were at Nessus. And so then you get Qualys, then you get Rapid7, and now you've got all this stuff. Then you see breach and attack simulation, which again, huge fans of Attack IQ. They've been partners on the streams before in the past. As a way to try to innovate on top of vulnerability scans. That failed to land. And if you watch the spending of vulnerability management, the spending of vulnerability management plateaued, if not declined slightly. So what did the
yeah,
industry do? They retooled it and they called it CTEM, Cyber Threat Exposure Management.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
think if you look at where we're at on the other side of that entirety of that conversation, now people are coming back and going, you know what? CTEM's bullshit. Baz was bullshit. It really just all boils down to vulnerability management. If I could just get my vulnerabilities under control, I'd be so much better off.
hmm,
I think that that's what Jason's talking about, because the conversations that I'm having with CISOs, with CEOs on the query side, they've spent millions and millions and millions of investment in SIM over the years and are coming out the other side of it and go, God, there's just that horse has left the stalls.
hmm,
We've got to go back to basics. We've got to go back to basics. I think
yeah,
people are definitely going to buy, Jason, what you're talking about, which is I'm going to go back to people with ethics, people with values, people who have a discernible business advantage.
yes, yeah. I just I think I think we need to, as a cybersecurity community, realize that the environment has gotten toxic. While I was listening to you, this is a thought that came to mind. Is we see and hear these software packages roll out, and they have false claims, And I think it's part of where the environment is becoming toxic is people are saying, oh, we do all that. Well, at what level? Like, there's no possible way that you protect the whole environment at like a level 10,
Yeah.
1 out of 10.
Yeah.
And so there's this thing in the market. I love the early days where, you bought a product because it solved a challenge, it solved a gap.
Yep.
And yes, people were frustrated. They went through pain and frustration around, like, say, maybe I got 5 products or 10 products. And so what Gartner and others would say is, oh, well, we need to condense the market, and then we need to reduce the amount of tools we have. That actually really didn't necessarily happen.
Yeah.
Maybe the tools fell under a different name, but the tool was still there. It happened to be in just a different pane of glass. But
and don't forget, if you paid Gartner measly $250,000, they'd be like, okay, well, maybe we can keep that category since you're in the upper right.
Yes. Yeah. Be careful of the pay to plays out there. Because, it's just modern day mafia.
Yeah.
Anyhow, what I think that where we need to get back to as a cybersecurity community, and the community is going to have to make this shift.
Yes.
Vendors aren't,
No.
and I'm on the vendor side.
Absolutely.
You're on the vendor side.
Absolutely.
But what's not going to happen is you're not going to get from these big vendors. They're not going to shift their mentality. They're not worried about culture. They're worried about money.
That's right.
Whereas I'm sitting here saying, listen, we need to get back to actually solving challenges and gaps in the marketplace ethically, morally, and creating relationships with people where we are actually sitting down at the table again over lunch, having a great conversation and not worrying about if your thing is better than my thing. And it stifles innovation, it stifles conversation. And I see it. I'm like, I go to the conferences and there's like 100, 200, 300, 500 people in a room. And then you go over to lunch and there's very few people talking to one another.
This is Chad. This is why, like, I tell you, conferences are bullshit. This is exactly why I tell you, like you can sit on your high horse on networking all day long, but Jason is hitting the nail on the head. There are very few out-of-band conversations there are way fewer out-of-band conversations that are happening at conferences today than there was 5, 10, 15 years ago.
I was at a conference earlier this year, and the conference had maybe 300, 400 people at it. It wasn't huge, but let me tell you, there was like between 30 and 35 vendors in the room. All your major brand names were in the room, right? And these conferences go from city to city to city, right? And the painful side of this is that they're like, oh, you come here and you get learning credits. And so all these people are like there to learn. I'm like, all you got was a product pitch.
That's a fantastic point. That's a great point.
All this Joe Schmo did up on stage.
That's a great point.
Was gave a 30 to 45 minute product pitch.
That's right. And you got continuing education credits for your CISSP.
And that is garbage.
And that is that is garbage.
That undermines the whole premise and foundation of the CPE credits, the continuing education
Jens,
credits.
clip this. I want this going viral on LinkedIn this week or next week, right? Because that is the scam. That's the scam that we're currently in right now.
Whoever is behind these continuing education credits in the quote unquote governing body or whatever needs to attend some of these conferences and say, hey, do they meet and are they upholding the standard? Or was that a product pitch?
Yeah.
They'll walk in, sit there for the 7 or 8 hours that day and say, this was nothing but a bunch of product pitches that I could have went and got for free if I would have called all 8 or 10 of these people and the sales engineer would have given me a free demo. But that's just what I got.
But let's dissect that a little bit. So now you've got new people, like take somebody who's fresh on CISSP, They may not be an operational cybersecurity person. They have to go get their continuing education credits renewed a year later. They get a sense to go to this conference, and they hear nothing but an 8-hour product pitch at a conference to get their continuing education credits. That mentality is then indoctrinated in them as they go back to their orgs and have to develop a strategy based on what their responsibilities are. So, I mean, I'm not going to fault them for it. They've been told by the industry, they've been told by the governing bodies that this counts as education, that a product can solve your cybersecurity domain issues. And that's what they go back to their organizations and pitch as a strategy, which then feeds the vendor cycle.
And that right there is garbage.
Yep.
Somebody needs to say that's garbage.
Yep.
There wasn't any learning that happened. You didn't tell me. The only thing you did was you told me how your product worked.
Yep.
And how it did what it did, how I navigated through the GUI, and then some really cool reports that it shot out for the executive team at the end.
100%.
And where was the learning in there? Where did you actually learn, the problem, the challenge, how we're solving it? I miss the days, and I know I'm kind of digging back here, and then I have like 8 minutes.
I know you got I'm watching the time for you. You got 8 minutes and you got to bounce.
Back in the day, these conferences started off amazingly cool. People would showcase their dev environment, how they were unearthing these things. They'd pull up, the CLI and showcase, how they arrived at what they arrived at. And then they maybe talked about a couple of things in the marketplace that they felt like were closing the gap for them. But it was nowhere near a product pitch. It was 30 to 45 minutes of learning. And at the end, it said, hey, if you want to learn more, go and check out these websites. And the sad thing is, and if you guys don't know this, and I'm going to tell you, the sad thing is these conferences that are handing out these continuing education credits, these vendors are paying $5,000, $7,500, $10,000, $15,000,
$200 if you're talking about RSA and Def or Black Hat.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking 6 figures to have a booth and a speaking spot, and they want the speaking spot, and they're going to pay the top level sponsorship. And I'm thinking to myself, holy smokes, who's the winner here? It's not the attendee, and it surely isn't the vendor. It's the event people.
Yeah,
where they make like $1 million an event or more.
Yes.
And the food isn't that great.
No.
And then you paid for parking, and then you get in there.
We're getting deep when Jason's complaining about parking.
Oh yeah. When I'm just hoping that when you look at events this year, like when you map out, I hear all the time, I need money to go to events. And I'm like, what's the event? And then, is the event truly, truly, truly educational?
Yeah.
Or is it going to be 10, 15 product pitches all day long? You're going to go end up sitting out in the hallway and working all day anyhow, which is just fascinating to me, because I'm like, well, you came here to this event, and here you are sitting out in the hallway on your laptop. You're not even part of the event. You're just working from a different location.
Here's the mentality, and this is one of the things I'll give SANS credit for. When I first started instructing for SANS and speaking at SANS conferences, when I wrote my first talks for SANS conferences in 2012, they actually denied my first couple of talks, because they were like, if the audience can't walk away from your talk with something that they can leave your speaking room, go out into the lobby, sit down on their laptop, and execute today as a TTP or a strategy or whatever the case is, your talk has failed.
Wow.
And that put a lot in perspective to me early days at Sands, is like that's the mentality that I carried with on every talk I've ever given. So that's what I would give back to the community. Challenge yourself. If you're looking at a talk and you go to a talk and you can't leave the talk and execute something valuable for your organization after that talk is over, it was a wasted effort. You wasted your time.
Yep. Yeah. I hope that the event industry changes for the good. But it's going to take disruption.
Yeah. Real quick, Jason, I want to be respectful of your time. You got 4 minutes. I know you have a meeting at the bottom of the hour. It's Christmas week. We're going to see you next week. Chad, don't go anywhere. We're going to transition to a co-working stream. So don't go anywhere just yet. But Jason, week of Christmas, we'll see you next week for another threat brief. What are 3 things? We've had a really cynical stream today. About culture and things like that. Give 3 positive things before you sign off for the community.
One is, we appreciate you guys. Thank you guys so much for being a part of our streams this year in 2025. Neal and I are looking forward to 2026 and continuing to make these streams as awesome as we could. 2 is, Merry Christmas to you and your family. I hope that you have a God-blessed time, that you are you get some time off and you get to really understand like what your purpose is in life. As I'm getting older and as I am, spending so much time, in work and things like that, I have really spent a lot of time evaluating what is the purpose and what are we after here? Because, in the beginning years, you're 20, 30 years old. You're like, I need money. I need a place to live and I need to do all these things. Later on, you finally get to like your priorities shift. And I would just encourage you to really look at your priorities and make sure that they're aligned with your moral compass. And 3, be safe. Make sure your family's safe, your friends are safe, and you guys have a great Merry Christmas.
Jason, tell the team I said hi. I'm going to send you along your way so that you're not late for your meeting. Thank you so very much for today. Chat, don't go anywhere. We are going to transition to a co-working stream. As Jason reminded us, we've been streaming now together as a team for the last year. It's been amazing to have him as a permanent fixture on Cyber Insecurity. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed his contributions to the stream and to the community. He's truly doing it out of the passion of his heart and the passion for this industry. I will remind you, and I will make sure that the FTC is aware, Jason is not a paid individual. He doesn't pay to be on this stream. We don't promote BitLift. We don't promote his products. There's no advertising that goes on here. He just genuinely, truly cares. So with that being said, we're going to transition to a co-working stream. If you are on LinkedIn, YouTube, or X, I'm going to end your stream. You guys can come on over to Twitch to participate in a co-working stream. I'm actually going to